Welcome to Chef Rosemary's Food from the Pantry. Today we're going to be doing one of my favourite cake recipes. It's called a hummingbird cake. This is an American recipe and today we're going to be cooking it with you. Today's ingredients are going to be 3 cups of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda. This helps the cake to rise. We've also got 2 cups of sugar to create obviously sweetness in the cake. We're going to have 1 cup of oil, which is your moisture. We can use a vegetable oil or a canola oil. We're also going to have 3 large eggs, and we're also going to use 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to create some extra flavour. We're also going to have 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence, and we're also going to use half a tin of crushed pineapple with the juice. If you don't have crushed pineapple, you can use pineapple rings and you can cut them up. Okay, and we're also going to use 3 to 4 bananas, and they need to be crushed down with a fork, which I'll show you shortly how to do that. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to use all our dry ingredients first. So we've got our 3 cups of plain flour that we're going to pop into our bowl. You can sift this if you like, but I don't feel it's necessary in this recipe. We're going to add the bicarb soda to this, and we're also going to add the 2 cups of sugar. Now the sugar we're using is just a normal sugar. You can use caster if you wish, but we can just use a normal sugar too. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can add a little bit more if you like cinnamon. I really like cinnamon, but 1 teaspoon is enough. So now we have all our dry ingredients in our bowl. We're going to whisk it together just to incorporate it. This will help aerate all the ingredients together. Now we're going to move on to our liquid ingredients. Okay, as I mentioned before, we have 1 cup of oil, vegetable or canola you can use. Don't use olive oil because it's too heavy for this recipe. So we add that to our other bowl. We add our crushed pineapple and the juice. We also add our vanilla essence, 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence. You can measure this if you like, or you can just put in the desired amount for taste. I'm using a half teaspoon in that, but we total of 1 teaspoon all up. We're now going to crack our eggs into the mixture. Just try not to get shell in it if you can, but if you do, it doesn't matter. We'll pull that out with the egg shell itself. Now the next stage is to break the bananas down. You can do this on a plate with a fork. It just helps them break them down that little bit easier. The bananas best used for this recipe are quite ripe because they break down in the cooking process. We just fork them down, just breaks them down and helps to mix it through the cake recipe. This recipe ends up being quite sweet. It's a great way to get bananas and pineapple into your kids if they don't really like eating them. It's a really tasty, quick, easy recipe for people to make. So we've just got 1 more banana to go. Hopefully you can see how easy that is to break the banana down. Obviously the riper the banana, the easier it is to mash it up. And when we're finished breaking them down, we're going to add them to the rest of the liquid ingredients and mix it through. So that's good enough for the banana. We add that to our liquid ingredients. So we're just combining all those liquid ingredients, the banana, the pineapple, the egg, the oil, the vanilla essence. So now that that's all broken down, we're simply going to add it to our dry ingredients. Now we can use a fork still for this, so it's just a matter of mixing them together, incorporating all those ingredients making sure all the flour's going to be mixed in. So we're just going around and around until we get all that flour mixed in with those liquids. This will only take a few minutes to actually do, but we want to make sure all that flour is absorbed. It's quite a thick mixture and it smells really nice. You can smell the banana coming through while you're mixing it. So we keep mixing. We bring the fork up from the bottom to make sure we incorporate all that flour that might be sitting on the bottom there. As you can see, there's still some coming from the bottom. But at least with this recipe, we don't get the mixer out and cause lots of noise until later on when we start making the icing. Now that's pretty much all incorporated. So now we're going to move on to the preparation of our cake tin and also for our oven. We need to turn our oven on to 180 degrees and we're going to use the middle shelf. Now we're going to be turning our oven on to 180 degrees on a fan forced oven and now we're going to prepare our cake tin. Today I'm using a springform tin. You can use any tin that you have, but it's much easier to use a springform. I also like to use Glad Bake just to ensure that it's not going to stick at all. So with our springform tin today, we're going to undo the base and we're going to pop the Glad Bake over the top. You can spray it if you wish, but it will hold there. We pop the springform back over it and we clasp it tight so it looks like this. We can cut the Glad Bake off if you like, but it's not necessary. So the next stage we're going to do is we're going to spray some oil around our tin so as the outside doesn't stick. So we need to just do a light coating around our tin and that just ensures that the cake doesn't stick to the tin. It's easy to get off. So now the next process is that we've got our cake mix ready to go. Okay, we then just scrape it into our tin. Now if you do have any flour that's not mixed, we've got a little bit here, we're just going to incorporate it in as we're going. Now if you like, you can also add chopped walnuts to this mixture, just a handful if you like that crunch. Today we're not. I'm not a big fan of walnuts, so I'm not going to pop them in today. So this is how the cake mix looks. It's quite heavy, but that's pretty much right to go in the oven now. So as I said before, a preheated oven at about 180 degrees. This should take about 50 minutes to cook. You can also change this recipe by either putting it in a long slice tray and cutting it into squares, or you can pop it into little muffin tins and that'll cook a lot quicker than this. But today we're doing it in the springform. Okay, so now we're going to pop it over into the oven. So now we're going to pop it into the preheated oven at 180 degrees. Welcome back to Chef Rosemary's Food from the Pantry. We're now up to our second stage of the hummingbird cake. We have our cake in the oven. It's pretty much ready to come out. We did make one earlier so as we can ice it. Our cake is now ready and we're going to take it out of the oven because we had one in earlier. Now this cake has cracked a little bit. That is quite normal, but we're going to cover it with some icing, so that's going to fix all that. Now let me go through the icing with you. This is quite a sweet icing. We start with our ingredients here we've got on the bench. Okay, so we have here 250 grams of cream cheese. Okay, then we have 125 grams of butter that is at room temperature. Okay, we need it to be at room temperature so it breaks down better in the mixer. We then have 1 teaspoon of vanilla we're going to add to it, and then we're going to slowly beat in 300 grams of icing sugar. We need to sift this icing sugar so we don't get lumps in our icing. I'm now going to start that and show you the process of how to do it. So we add our 250 grams of cream cheese to our mixer. This adds a really nice texture to the icing. We then will add our butter, which will also help to make it a really nice smooth icing. So I've chopped up our butter. Remember, it needs to be at room temperature so it breaks down better when we're mixing it. So you can chop it up in little squares. We're going to pop that in with our cream cheese. Now once again, we're going to add some vanilla essence. It says about a teaspoon. You can add a bit more if you like vanilla essence. I'm not going to measure it because I sort of have an idea on the measurement we need. So we're going to pop that in with our cream cheese and our butter. Now our next stage is our icing sugar. We really need to sift this icing sugar so as there's no lumps when we're mixing it. I'm just using quite a big sifter here. Some people have a rotating sifter. This one we're just going to put through into the other bowl. That's 300 grams of icing sugar there. I'm going to use my whisk to help force it through. This will take a little bit of time because the amount we're actually sifting through. That's just about all done now. There's a few lumps in there that we're going to sort of push through. If there's too many lumps, we're not going to worry about them. But that's why it's really important to sift your icing to get rid of those lumps. Now we're going to put the mixer on. This will create a little bit of noise, so just bear with us. What we're going to do is we're going to slowly beat the cream cheese, the butter and the vanilla essence so as it gets to a combined paste. As you could see, that was all starting to come together. We're going to slowly add our icing sugar. Now, if we add too much and we turn the mixer on, we're going to have icing sugar everywhere. It's going to go everywhere. We're going to have dust, okay? So we're going to gradually add it as we're mixing. As we've been mixing that through, we need to scrape the sides down because there's icing sugar up the sides that hasn't incorporated yet. So I'm just going to grab my knife here and I'm going to scrape that down so it mixes up really well. It smells really, really nice. We've got the vanilla essence coming through. So we need to beat it up a little bit more so as it's all combined really, really nicely. We've just got some icing sugar sitting up there on the top shelf. We're just going to tip that in because we need to make sure the quantities are rather correct because otherwise it won't have the same texture. So now we're going to mix it really, really well for a little bit of time so it's all incorporated. We're going to scrape it back down. There's a little bit more that's not mixed. It does take a little bit of work, but it's not that hard to actually do. We just need to get some of those little bits of butter in there that have formed to mix in with the icing sugar. I'm just going to grab our hand whisk here and just mix it a little bit further. We want to make sure it's fairly smooth. It's going to taste fantastic on this hummingbird cake. Okay, so we've pretty much got it mixed now, ready to show you how to ice the cake. Okay, so I'll grab the cake out. I might give it a little taste. I'll just grab a spoon. Tastes really, really good. Smooth. It's sweet. It's rich. And that will complement the bananas and pineapple in the hummingbird cake. So we'll just push these to the side now. We're going to bring our cake over. We're going to take it out of this tin we've actually used, and we're going to get a platter to put it on. So we're taking the glad bake off. With the spring form, we would then unclip it and place it on the tray like we have here. There's a number of ways we can ice this cake. If you like, you can just dust it with icing sugar to make it really simple. But today we've made a frosting. So we're going to pop the frosting on top. Now there's plenty of frosting on this. And we're going to spread it out over the top of the cake. Now we can also slice this cake in half and put frosting in the middle of the cake too. But today we're just going to maybe pop it on the top. We might decide to add it to the outside. So we just work it around the cake. There's plenty of frosting there to use. We'll pop a bit more on it. You can have it drizzling down the sides as well if you like. This cake's really, really nice and sweet. It's great to have with coffee. We might sit down and have some coffee with this cake shortly. So that's the first stage, is we can ice it like that. If we like, we can then put some banana chips. You can buy them at the supermarket. We can put some banana chips around it for texture. We could also pipe icing, little florets on top, to make it look really nice as well. And we can also put some roasted coconut around the sides. So we're just going to sprinkle those on top. We're going to make it quite an easy decoration this time. And that just shows people that, you know, that there might be bananas inside. You could also put walnuts on top if you like as well. I'm just going to show you one other way to decorate this cake. Because it's quite a firm cake, we can actually lift that in our hands. We can add icing around the side of this cake, and I'll quickly show you that you can do this all the way around. You can also use a Lazy Susan to turn this cake around to do this. And what we would then do is we would grab our roasted coconut, okay? And we can just press that up against the side, and that gives the cake another texture. Okay, and it also adds the crunch when you go to eat it. So I've done that side there. We can work our way all around the cake to finish it off like that. But as I said earlier, if you don't want to make the icing, you don't want to go that extra step, you can just dust it with icing sugar. It will come up really, really good with your coffee or your tea. You could also use this cake as a dessert. You can serve it with ice cream. So it's quite an adaptable cake to make. It has variances on having as a tea cake or having it also as an actual dessert, sit down dessert. You can dress it up a lot more if you have it as a dessert. You can add other things to it to dress your plate up. So we're just about all the way around the cake now. This is probably a little bit longer doing it this way than maybe doing it on a Lazy Susan, but it's just to show you guys that, you know, we can actually change the cake up. So we're just about all the way around. So there we have it. We have our American hummingbird cake. with a couple of different decorations. So enjoy. We're going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with this cake in a minute and tell you what it tastes like. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Chef Rosemary's Food from the Pantry. This is the best part of the day. We've made the cake, we've decorated it, and now we're going to taste it. So we have some coffee, and I'm going to cut a slice and see what we think. Obviously, Matt's going to see what he thinks of it, whether it tastes good or not. So here we go. We're just going to cut a bit of a wedge. I mean, that's the cake there. It's quite dense, but it'll be really, really light and sweet. So we've got Matt a fork there to try it with, and he's going to have his coffee with it too.
Well, that looks fantastic, Rosemary. It really does. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is fantastic. That's great. That's really, really good.
What do you taste in it?
Pineapple. I taste the icing, the butter, the icing on top. It's really nice. Obviously the banana flavour, and obviously there's you get that sort of lovely warm feeling from the cake. It's great.
You also would get the crunch from the dried banana. As I mentioned earlier, this cake can be made in little muffin patties for kids, and it's a great way to get banana and pineapple into your children if they struggle to eat those. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. We look forward to the next Chef Rosemary's Food from the Pantry. Today's ingredients were for a hummingbird cake. We had 3 cups of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda, 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of oil. We also had 3 large eggs, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence, half a tin of crushed pineapple, and also 3 to 4 bananas. We incorporated those ingredients and then we baked it in the oven at 180 degrees for about 50 minutes. We also went through and made a cream cheese frosting, which also incorporated 250 grams of cream cheese, 125 grams of butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 300 grams of icing sugar. We mixed all those together to make a nice smooth frosting. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you soon. Today's episode is going to be a Thai pumpkin soup. This is my version of Thai pumpkin soup. It's quick and it's easy. We can also convert it to just a simple pumpkin soup if you don't like the spices that are in the Thai pumpkin. That'll do. So with this particular one, as I mentioned before, I've got about 1.5 kilos of pumpkin. Okay, so this is ready to go now. Our pumpkin's really tender, our onion's really soft as well. There's enough liquid left in it to start the next process. And we can also add just a touch of olive oil just to make the presentation look a little bit nicer. Just gives that glistening gleam through it.